help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Please like the video and share your thoughts on the video. Your feedback helps make the contents better. Now let's get to the story.
The hospital waiting room smelled like disinfectant and broken promises. I sat there, my hands shaking as I stared at the divorce papers my sister Amanda had just shoved into them. Not her divorce papers, but custody documents. Transfer of parental rights. My 10-year-old nephew Dylan lay in the ICU 3 floors above us, fighting for his life after his 3rd seizure that week, and my sister was handing me legal papers like she was passing off an unwanted subscription service. "He's your child now," Amanda said, her voice cold as January rain. Her new boyfriend Rick stood behind her, checking his watch like he had somewhere better to be. He did. They were catching a flight to Costa Rica in 4 hours. "I can't do this anymore, James. I'm 32 years old. I deserve to be happy." I looked up at her, tears streaming down my face. "Amanda, he's dying. The doctor said he needs that experimental treatment, and it costs $200,000. I know." She adjusted her designer purse, the one she bought last week while her son was having brain scans. "I don't have that kind of money, and honestly, I'm done playing nurse to a sick kid. Rick and I are starting fresh. New life, new country, new everything. He's your son." My voice cracked. The receptionist pretended not to hear. "And now he's your problem. You always were the responsible one, little brother. Mom and Dad always said so." She smiled, actually smiled. "Besides, you're a nurse. You're better equipped for this than I ever was." That was 17 years ago. I was 25 then, working double shifts at County General, living in a studio apartment that barely fit a bed. I'd never wanted kids, never planned for them. But when Amanda walked out of that hospital and blocked my number before her plane even took off, I didn't have a choice. My name is James Whitmore, and I'm 42 years old now. Back then, I was just a scared kid trying to figure out how to save another scared kid while working 70-hour weeks and drowning in medical bills that made my student loans look like pocket change. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these stories matter. Dylan survived that first year through sheer stubbornness and some creative financing on my part. I took out loans that would make a loan shark blush. Sold everything I owned except my car and my scrubs. Moved us into a 1-bedroom apartment in the cheapest part of town, where the sirens were so constant they became white noise. The experimental treatment worked, but it left Dylan weak. The seizures stopped, but he needed physical therapy, occupational therapy, and enough medications to stock a small pharmacy. I learned to cut his pills, manage his symptoms, and function on 3 hours of sleep. I also learned to be a father. Nobody tells you how hard it is. The parenting books assume you had 9 months to prepare, not 9 minutes. Dylan was angry at his mom for leaving, at his body for betraying him, at me for not being her. He broke things, screamed, had nightmares that left both of us exhausted. But we figured it out, slowly, painfully, together. I taught him to ride a bike when he was 13, 3 years later than other kids because his balance issues made it dangerous. I sat through every parent-teacher conference, every school play, every science fair. I learned to braid hair from YouTube videos because he refused to cut his long hair, said it made him feel like a rock star. I stopped correcting him. The other nurses at the hospital became our family. Janice from pediatrics taught Dylan to bake. Tom from the ER taught him to play chess. Maria from oncology taught him Spanish swear words she definitely shouldn't have, but it made him laugh, so I let it slide. Money was always tight. I picked up extra shifts, worked holidays, learned to make a chicken last 5 meals, and to shop sales like it was an Olympic sport. Dylan wore thrift store clothes and didn't complain. His birthdays were modest. Homemade cake, secondhand presents, and all the love I could squeeze into 24 hours. When he was 14, he asked about Amanda. We were eating spaghetti in our tiny kitchen, the one where you couldn't open the fridge if someone was standing at the stove. He'd been quiet all day, which usually meant the gears were turning. Uncle James. He still called me that sometimes, though legally I'd adopted him when he was 12. Do you ever hear from my mom? I put down my fork. No, buddy, not since she left. Does she know I'm okay? That I'm not sick anymore? The hope in his voice nearly killed me. I don't know what she knows, Dylan. He nodded, twirling spaghetti he didn't eat. Rick left her, you know. I did know. Amanda had sent one email 3 years ago when her Costa Rica paradise fell apart. Rick ran off with someone younger, took all their money, left her broke in a foreign country. She'd asked for help, not to come home, just money for a plane ticket. I'd sent it because I'm an idiot who can't help being the responsible one. She never said thank you. Yeah, I said carefully. I heard something about that. But she never came back to see me. No, she didn't. Dylan was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked up at me with eyes too old for 14. Good. I don't need her anyway. I've got you. I excused myself to the bathroom and cried for 10 minutes. High school was hard. Dylan was smart, brilliant, even, but his medical history made him different. Kids can be cruel about different. He came home with bruises that weren't from falling, notes that said things I wanted to track down parents for. But Dylan handled it with humor that surprised me. They called me Seizure Boy today. He told me once, laughing while I saw red. That's not funny, Dylan. I told them if they wanted a real show, I could pretend to have one during Mrs. Patterson's math test. Make it educational. He grinned. 3 of them actually thought I was serious. The looks on their faces were priceless. You're terrible, I said, but I was smiling. Learn from the best, Uncle James. He threw himself into school, into proving everyone wrong. Made honor roll every semester. Joined the debate team and destroyed kids twice his size with logic, and that sharp wit. Applied to colleges I couldn't afford with scholarships that covered what I couldn't. The day he got accepted to Stanford with a full ride, I took him to the same diner where we'd celebrated his first seizure-free year. We ordered milkshakes we couldn't afford and pancakes at midnight because we could. I'm going to be a lawyer, Dylan announced, chocolate mustache on his upper lip. Corporate law, the kind that makes stupid money. Language, I said automatically. The kind that makes ridiculous money, he corrected, grinning. And when I do, I'm buying you a house. A real one, with a kitchen where the fridge doesn't attack you. Dylan, with a yard, and one of those grills that cost more than our car. And I'm going to pay off every single one of those medical bills you think I don't know about. My throat tightened. You don't have to. Yeah, I do. You gave up everything for me. Uncle James. Your 20s, your social life. Probably like 6 girlfriends. 3, I corrected. 3 girlfriends, your savings, your tiny apartment that didn't have cockroaches. You gave me a life. So yeah, I'm gonna pay you back. His voice got serious. And if I ever see my mother again, I'm gonna make sure she knows exactly what she threw away. I should have told him to let it go, to forgive, to move on. But I didn't, because some part of me, the part that still remembered holding him while he seized, the part that remembered choosing between his medication and groceries, the part that remembered Amanda's cold smile, that part wanted her to know too. For years at Stanford flew by. Dylan came home for holidays with stories about classes and internships and a future. So bright, I needed sunglasses to look at it. He graduated top of his class, got into Harvard Law, made law review, clerk for a federal judge. And then he got hired by Morrison & Associates, one of the biggest corporate law firms in the country, with a starting salary that made my yearly income look like a rounding error. He was 27. It had been 17 years since Amanda left. And then, like a bad penny, she came back. The knock on my door came on a Tuesday evening. I'd just gotten home from a 12-hour shift. Still in my scrubs, heating up leftovers that Dylan had brought over last Sunday. He did that now. Showed up with actual groceries, expensive wine I pretended to understand, and stories about cases he couldn't quite tell me about due to attorney-client privilege. I opened the door expecting Jehovah's Witnesses, or maybe the kids selling chocolate bars for baseball. I got Amanda instead. She'd aged badly. That sounds mean, but it's true. The woman standing on my doorstep looked 50, not 49. Her hair was badly dyed. Her clothes were Walmart instead of Macy's, and her face had the worn look of someone who lived hard and regretted most of it. "James," she said, like we were old friends who just lost touch. "It's so good to see you." I stood there, frozen, my brain trying to process that the woman who'd haunted my nightmares for nearly 2 decades was standing in my doorway like she'd just popped by for coffee. "Amanda," my voice was flat. "What do you want? Can I come in? I've been traveling all day and—" "No." She blinked, surprised. The old James would have let her in, would have made tea and asked about her flight, and swallowed his anger, because that's what responsible people do. But I'd spent 17 years becoming someone different. "I just want to talk," she said, her voice taking on a whine I remembered too well. "About Dylan. I heard he's doing well. Someone mentioned seeing him, and I just thought—" "You thought what?" I stepped onto the porch, pulling the door closed behind me. "That you could just show up after 17 years and what? Get a recap? Some photos? Maybe ask for money since I know Rick cleaned you out." Her face flushed. "That's not fair. I had my reasons for leaving." "Your reasons?" My voice rose. "Your son was dying, Amanda. He was 10 years old, in a hospital bed, and you handed me papers and got on a plane to drink margaritas with your loser boyfriend. I was depressed. I was struggling. You don't know what it was like." "You're right. I don't know what it was like to abandon my child, but I know what it was like to raise him, to hold him through seizures, to choose between his medication and electricity, to explain why his mother didn't call on his birthday every single year." A door opened down the hall. Mrs. Rodriguez, poked her head out, concerned. I lowered my voice. "Dylan doesn't need you. He doesn't want you. And he's done just fine without you. He's my son." "No." The word came out hard. "He stopped being your son when you signed those papers. You want to know what happened to him? He survived. Despite you, not because of you. And if you think you can just waltz back into his life now that he's successful—" "Successful?" Her eyes sharpened with interest that made my stomach turn. "What do you mean successful?" Of course. Of course that's what she'd latch on to. "Get off my porch, Amanda, and stay away from Dylan. You can't keep me from my own son. Watch me." I went back inside and closed the door, locked it, leaned against it while my heart hammered. She knocked for 5 more minutes before giving up. I watched through the window as she got into a beat-up Honda and drove away. Then I called Dylan. "Uncle James, I was just thinking about you. There's this case. Amanda's back." Silence. Then what? "She showed up at my apartment an hour ago, asking about you." More silence. I could practically hear him thinking, that sharp legal mind processing options. "Did you tell her anything?" "Just that you're doing fine and she needs to stay away." "Good." His voice was cold, all business. The voice he probably used in depositions. "Do you think she'll try to contact me?" "I don't know. Maybe. She seemed interested when I accidentally mentioned you were successful." Dylan laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Of course she did. Let me guess. Rick left her broke, and now she's looking for a payday?" "That's my read." "Well." There was a pause, and when he spoke again, his voice had changed, gotten quieter, more dangerous. "If she wants to find me, she can find me. In fact, I think I'd like her to find me. Dylan. 17 years, Uncle James. 17 years of wondering if she ever thought about me, if she ever regretted it, if she ever even asked how I was doing." His voice hardened. "I think it's time she got some answers." We talked for another hour. I tried to convince him to let it go, to not let her back in, to protect himself. But Dylan had that tone, the one that meant his mind was made up and all the logic in the world wouldn't change it. "Trust me," he said before we hung up. "I've got this handled." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I'd spent 17 years protecting that kid, and the instinct doesn't just shut off because he's an adult with a law degree and a corner office. If you're listening right now, hit that subscribe button, because what happened next proved that sometimes The best revenge isn't moving on. It's moving up and making sure they know exactly what they lost. Amanda found Dylan 3 days later. Or rather, he let her find him. He'd done something clever. Used his firm's resources to track her current address, her phone number, her email. Then he'd made sure she could accidentally discover where he worked. A carefully worded LinkedIn update. A mention in a legal journal that just happened to get shared on social media. She took the bait. Dylan told me later that she'd shown up at Morrison and Associates on Friday afternoon, dressed in her best clothes, which still weren't good enough for the chrome and glass lobby, and asked to see her son. The receptionist, trained to handle everyone from CEOs to process servers, had smiled politely and asked if she had an appointment. "I'm his mother," Amanda had said, like that was an access pass. "I'll let Mr. Whitmore know you're here," the receptionist said, and made a call. Dylan made her wait 45 minutes. He told me he spent that time finishing actual work, not playing power games, but the effect was the same. By the time he came down to the lobby, Amanda was fidgeting and nervous. He dressed for war. His best suit, the Tom Ford one he'd bought to celebrate making partner at 27, youngest in the firm's history. The Rolex I'd told him was too expensive, that he'd insisted on, because it's an investment, Uncle James. Shoes that cost more than my first car. He looked every inch the successful corporate attorney. Powerful, confident, untouchable. Everything she'd thrown away. "Hello, Amanda," he'd said. Not Mom, not Mother. Amanda. She'd stood up, tears already forming. "Dylan, baby, you look so—" "Let's talk in the conference room." He'd turned and walked away, not waiting to see if she'd follow. She had, of course, scrambling after him in shoes that squeaked on the marble floor. He took her to conference room C, not the nice one with the view, but the interior one they use for difficult depositions. Made her sit in the chair that faced away from the door. Offered her water in a paper cup, not the crystal glasses they use for clients. Small things, deliberate things, the kind of power moves he'd learned from years of watching corporate predators. Then he'd sat across from her and waited. "You look so good," Amanda said, crying now. "So grown up, I've missed you so much." "Have you?" Dylan's voice was polite. Distant. "That's interesting, since you haven't tried to contact me in 17 years. I wanted to. I did, but I didn't know how to reach you, and I was ashamed, and I've had the same email address since I was 16. It's on my LinkedIn profile, which you clearly found since you're here." She flinched. "Dylan, please. I made mistakes. I was young and stupid, and you were 32. I'm 27 now. Want to know the difference between us?" He leaned forward. "At 32, you abandon your dying child. At 27, I'm a partner at one of the top law firms in the country, and I still make time every Sunday to have dinner with the man who actually raised me. I heard about that, about James adopting you. I never signed. You signed custody papers. He petitioned for adoption when I was 12. You were sent the paperwork at your last known address in Costa Rica. You never responded, so the court assumed consent." He smiled, cold and professional. "I helped with the research for that. Actually, wanted to make sure it was airtight." Amanda's face crumbled. You wanted him to adopt you?" "Of course I did. He's my father in every way that matters. You're just a woman who gave birth to me and then decided motherhood was too hard. I was sick. I had postpartum depression that never went away, and Rick said, 'Don't.'" Dylan's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't you dare blame your choices on mental illness. You want to know what Uncle James did when things got hard? When the medical bills piled up and I was having seizures, and we were living in a roach-infested apartment. He worked harder. He sacrificed. He showed up every single day." He stood up, pacing now, and I could imagine him, my Dylan, who used to be so small and sick, now tall and strong and furious. "You want to know what happened to your poor boy?" His voice dripped sarcasm. "The one you left behind? He survived. He thrived. He got a full ride to Stanford. Graduated top of his class. Went to Harvard Law. And now He makes more in a year than you probably saw in your entire life with Rick. Amanda was sobbing now. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. Yes, you were. And you know what the worst part is? Dylan sat back down, leaning forward, so she had to look at him. I don't even hate you anymore. I did, for years. I hated you so much it kept me up at night. But Uncle James taught me something better. He taught me to use that anger, to channel it, to become someone you could never hurt again. Please, Dylan, I know I can't make up for lost time, but maybe we could start over? Get to know each other? I'm your mother. No. He stood up again, signaling the meeting was over. You're the woman who gave birth to me. My mother is Maria Rodriguez from the oncology ward who taught me to cook. My father is James Whitmore, who worked himself to exhaustion so I could live. You're just someone I used to know. He walked to the door, then paused. This is the part that still gives me chills when he tells it. Oh, and Amanda? Just so we're clear, you're never getting a dime from me. I know that's why you're really here. I'm a lawyer. I know how to protect my assets. And I've set up a trust in Uncle James's name that ensures he's taken care of for the rest of his life. Everything I have goes to him and, eventually, to the family I choose to build. You chose to walk away. That choice has consequences. He opened the door. Security will see you out. And if you try to contact me again, I'll get a restraining order. I have very good lawyers. You're one of them, she whispered. I'm the best of them, he corrected. That's what happens when someone actually believes in you. She left. Dylan watched her go from his office window. Watched her get into that beat-up Honda. Watched her sit in the parking lot crying for 20 minutes. Watched her finally drive away. Then he called me. It's done, he said. How do you feel? There was a long pause. Honestly? Empty. I thought it would feel better. Vindication or justice or something. But it just feels sad. That's because you're a good person, Dylan. Despite everything, you're a good person. I learned from the best dad. He'd never called me that before. I had to pull over because I was crying too hard to drive. That should have been the end of it. Dylan had his confrontation, said his piece, and Amanda slunk back to whatever hole she crawled out of. We could move on, put it behind us, live our lives. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. 2 months later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, probably a telemarketer or a scam about my car's extended warranty. But something made me pick up. James Whitmore? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Speaking. This is Patricia Chun from County General Hospital. I'm calling about Amanda Fletcher. You're listed as her emergency contact. My blood went cold. What happened? She was brought in 3 hours ago. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She's asking for you and Dylan Whitmore. Is he available? I called Dylan immediately. He was in court, but he called back during a recess. Absolutely not, he said when I told him. I meant what I said. She doesn't get to waltz back in because she's dying. Dylan. No, Uncle James. Dad. He corrected himself, and I could hear the emotion in his voice. She had 17 years to make this right. She doesn't get a deathbed reconciliation scene because it makes her feel better about her choices. I'm not asking you to forgive her. I'm asking you to think about whether you'll regret not going. Silence. Then, will you be there? Yeah, I'm heading over after my shift. Give me 2 hours. I need to finish this motion. He showed up in an hour and a half, still in his court suit, looking like he'd aged 5 years in the drive over. We walked into her room together. Amanda looked terrible. The cancer had ravaged her in ways that made my nurse's heart ache even as my brother's heart stayed hard. She was skeletal, yellow with jaundice, hooked up to machines that were doing more work than her body could anymore. James, she whispered. Dylan, you came. We're here, I said, because someone had to say something. Dylan stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, face unreadable. I don't have much time, Amanda said, which was true. I could see it in her vitals, in the way her breathing was labored. I needed to say, I'm sorry for everything, for leaving, for missing everything, for being a terrible mother. Okay, Dylan said. Just that? Nothing else. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. I thought about you. Every day. I was just too ashamed to reach out. Too scared you'd hate me. I did hate you, Dylan said calmly. For years. But hate takes energy, and you weren't worth it. It should have been cruel, but it was just honest. Amanda actually laughed, a wet, painful sound. You got a sense of humor, she said, looking at me. James always could cut to the bone with just a few words. Don't, Dylan said. Don't act like you know us. You chose not to know us. I know that now. But I need you to understand I was sick. Mentally, I had postpartum depression that turned into regular depression. And Rick convinced me that leaving was the right thing, that you'd be better off without a mother who couldn't cope. Stop. Dylan's voice was sharp. Just stop. You don't get to rewrite history now. You don't get to make yourself the victim of mental illness when the truth is you were just selfish. You wanted an easy life with Rick, and a sick kid didn't fit that picture. Amanda sobbed. You're right. You're absolutely right. I was selfish. I chose wrong, and I paid for it every day since. Good, Dylan said. Then, after a pause, but I don't forgive you. The machines beeped. Amanda struggled to breathe. I moved to adjust her oxygen, my nurse instincts kicking in despite everything. I don't expect you to, Amanda said finally. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry, that I was wrong, that you deserve better. I got better, Dylan said. I got Dad. He looked at me then, and despite everything, despite the dying woman in the bed, despite the 17 years of anger and pain, despite it all, he smiled. So, thanks for that, at least, Dylan continued, looking back at Amanda. If you hadn't left, I might have grown up thinking your kind of love was normal. Instead, I got to grow up knowing what real love looks like. The kind that shows up, the kind that sacrifices, the kind that doesn't quit when things get hard. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe, because this story is about to teach you that sometimes the best revenge isn't what you say to the people who hurt you. It's becoming someone they can never hurt again. Amanda died 3 days later. We weren't there. We'd said everything that needed saying. She'd asked to be cremated, no funeral, and for her ashes to be scattered somewhere she used to go as a kid. I handled the arrangements because I'm still the responsible one, apparently. Dylan paid for it all. Not for her, he told me. For you. So you don't have to worry about it. We scattered her ashes on a beach 2 hours north. It was just us. No ceremony, no words. Just 2 men standing on a beach, watching the wind take away what was left of a woman who'd left them first. Do you feel better? I asked as we walked back to the car. No, Dylan admitted, but I don't feel worse either. That's something, right? That's everything, actually. We drove home in comfortable silence. At a stoplight, Dylan spoke up. I bought you a house, he said casually. Well, I put a down payment on it. It's in that neighborhood you like, the one with the good schools and the coffee shop. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a yard with garden, and a kitchen with a fridge doesn't attack you. Dylan, you can't. Already did. We close in 30 days. You can retire from County General. Do that traveling you always talked about. Take cooking classes. Whatever you want. He glanced at me. You gave me a life, Dad. Let me give you one back. I don't need. I know you don't need it. That's why I want to give it to you. He pulled into my apartment complex. Soon to be my former apartment complex, apparently. Besides, I need somewhere to bring my girlfriend for Sunday dinners. This place isn't going to cut it. Girlfriend? I perked up. Since when do you have a girlfriend? Since 3 months ago. Her name is Jennifer. She's a public defender. We argue about everything, and she kicks my ass at chess. He grinned. I think you like her. Does she know about all of it? Amanda, you, the seizures, everything. I told her on our second date. Figured if she was going to run, better sooner than later. And she stayed. She said anyone who learned to love from you must be worth getting to know. He shrugged. She's not wrong. We sat in the car for a moment, watching the sunset turn the sky orange and pink. Thank you, Dylan said suddenly, for everything, for not giving up on me when you had every reason to, for working yourself to death so I could live, for showing me what family actually means. You don't have to thank me. Yeah, I do. Because here's the thing. Amanda died thinking she robbed you of your 20s, your freedom, your life. But the truth is, you robbed her of something so much better. You robbed her of me, of watching me grow up, of being proud of who I became, of Sunday dinners and terrible jokes and all the small moments that make a life. He turned to look at me, and his eyes were wet. She died with nothing, Dad. No family, no love, no legacy, just regret and ashes. Meanwhile, you have me. You have this life we built together. You have Jennifer, who already calls you the legendary James and wants to meet you. You have a house and retirement and a future full of grandkids who are going to worship you. Grandkids? I choked out. You're moving pretty fast with this Jennifer. Shut up and let me have my moment, he said, but he was laughing. My point is, you won, not because she died, but because you lived, really lived, and you taught me to do the same. We both cried then, right there in the parking lot of my crappy apartment, while Mrs. Rodriguez probably watched from her window and judged us. You know what the best part is? Dylan said, wiping his eyes. Amanda came back looking for her son, hoping to find someone she could manipulate or guilt into giving her money or comfort or absolution. Instead, she found a stranger in a $1,000 suit who looked her in the eye and told her she'd lost the privilege of being his mother. He started laughing, that sharp humor coming back. Can you imagine? She probably thought I'd be grateful, thought I'd be damaged, broken, needing her. Instead, I'm out here buying houses and dating public defenders and making partner before 30. That's the real revenge. Not that she died sad, but that she died knowing she threw away something priceless for absolutely nothing. That's pretty dark, Dylan. I learned from the best. Dad, you're the one who taught me that living well is the best revenge. I never said that. No, but you showed it. Every day for 17 years. 6 months later, we had Sunday dinner at my new house. Dylan brought Jennifer, who was exactly as wonderful and argumentative as he described. She brought homemade bread and a story about a case that had Dylan laughing so hard he nearly choked on his wine. So, then the prosecutor, Jennifer was saying, gesturing wildly with her fork, realizes he's been arguing with the wrong defendant for 20 minutes. Wrong case entirely. That's not how that works, Dylan said, grinning. Tell that to Judge Morrison. He was so mad, he canceled court for the afternoon just to go drink away the memory. They argued about legal procedure while I cooked pasta in my kitchen that actually had enough counter space for prep work. The doorbell rang, and Dylan went to answer it. He came back with Maria Rodriguez. Yes, the nurse from oncology, and her husband, Tom from the ER, and Janice from pediatrics. The family we built over 17 years in hospital hallways and double shifts. We ate and laughed and told embarrassing stories about Dylan as a kid. Maria brought out photos from when he was 12, all long hair and skinny limbs, grinning at the camera with frosting on his face from a birthday cake she'd made. You were such a weird kid, Jennifer said, looking at the photos. Still am, Dylan said proudly, just better dressed. And significantly richer, Tom added. When are you going to buy me a house? When you saved my life, Dylan shot back. Dad gets priority for, actually raising me. Fair point. As the sun set and the wine flowed and the laughter filled my new house with my new kitchen and my old family and Dylan's new girlfriend, I realized something. Amanda thought she was asking me what happened to her poor, sick little boy. She should have been asking what happened to the scared 25-year-old nurse who didn't know the first thing about raising kids. Because that guy, he figured it out. He raised a good man, built a family from nothing, turned pain into purpose and fear into love. And 17 years later, when Amanda came back looking for her son, she found exactly what she deserved. Nothing. But I found everything. And that right there is the best revenge of all. Not her dying sad and alone, though there's a certain poetry to that. Not Dylan's success, though watching her face when she realized what she'd thrown away was pretty satisfying. The real revenge was this: a Sunday dinner full of laughter, a house full of love, and a life so rich that Amanda's absence from it meant absolutely nothing. She left a hole, and we filled it with something better. She thought she was punishing me by leaving me with her burden. Instead, she gave me the greatest gift of my life, and she had to live just long enough to realize it. Dylan raised his glass. "To Dad," he said, "for proving that family isn't who you're born to, it's who shows up." Everyone echoed the toast. I looked around at this collection of people, nurses and lawyers, and the woman who might someday give me those grandkids Dylan threatened me with, and I thought about Amanda. I didn't forgive her. I'm not that good. But I didn't hate her anymore either. I just felt sorry for her, really. She had all this in her hands. This love, this family, this life. And she'd thrown away for a man who left her and a dream that died. Meanwhile, I got Dylan. And Dylan got me. And we both got this. So, yeah, Amanda, if you're listening from wherever you ended up, I won. Not because you died, but because I lived. And I taught your son to do the same. Game. Set. Match. Thanks for giving me your kid, sis. Best thing you ever did for both of us. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If it touched your heart or reminded you that real family is built through sacrifice and love, not just blood, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. I want to give a huge shout out to our amazing viewers from the United States, the Philippines, Canada, and especially New York. You guys make up the heart of this community, and your support means everything to me. Whether you're listening during your commute in Manhattan, your morning coffee in Manila, your lunch break in Toronto, or your evening wind down in Los Angeles, thank you for being here. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from and why stories like this matter to you. Do you have someone in your life who showed up for you when others walked away? Someone who chose to be your family? Share your story in the comments. I read every single one, and your experiences inspire the stories I share here. If you know someone who needs to hear this message today, someone who's struggling, someone who's sacrificing for others, or someone who needs to remember that living well is the best revenge, share this video with them. Remember, family isn't about who gave birth to you. It's about who shows up, who stays, and who loves you even when it's hard. Until next time, keep fighting for the people who fight for you.